name is Chris from christopherhole.com. Welcome to this week's whiteboard, where we're continuing core training and looking at the gluteal group. Normally a forgotten group of the core. When most people think of the core, they think of the rectus abdominis or the abdominal wall, but it does involve so much more. So as with the other whiteboards, we are going to look at anatomy in slide 1. Then we're going to look at the function of the muscles in slide 2 and start bringing in core training and how they work with core training. And then in the final slide, we're going to talk about different exercises and some different teaching cues, teaching points on what you need to do within those exercises to get the most out of your gluteal group in order to get the most out of your core. And before we get into those, I will just mention my social platforms, my social channels. You've got Twitter, which is @ChristopherHole. You've got Facebook, which is Christopher Hole Training, and you've got Instagram, which is Christopher Hole. So please do come along there, like and follow. It would be great to have you there and answer any questions that you may have. Alternatively, you can come to the website. I've got a range of 12-week core training programs. You can either go to christopherhole.com/online-training, which is essentially it's my online training platform. So you can book a 12-week core program where we'll do an initial consultation and assessment online, and then I can design a program for you, which is 3 4-week programs over a 12-week period. Alternatively, if you live in the Bristol or surrounding areas in the UK, you can come to christopherhole.com/personal-training. It's the exact same process, but this time it's done on a face-to-face basis within the gym environment. So it's exactly the same. You just go to that page, fill out the contact form. We will book you in for an initial consultation and assessment, which is all completely free, and then we'll get you signed up and started in the gym with the training. And it's all geared around building a stronger core, building greater fitness, so you can improve your health and fitness from the ground up. So coming back to today's whiteboard, we are talking about core training and the gluteal group. So first of all, we're going to look at the anatomy. So with the gluteal group, we've got 3 of the major muscles. You've got the glute max, which is this big one here. So this is the big buttock muscle that most people associate with the gluteal group. You've then got glute medius, which is to the side of the glute max, but in some ways kind of lies underneath it. And then you've got the glute minimus, which is sort of, you could say, the bottom layer, which is the deepest muscle, which is underneath the glute medius in the same position, if you want to say that. So if we start from the bottom and work our way up, so if we start with the glute minimus, it starts on the surface of the ilium. Now the ilium is this big sort of flat bone here, which is a part of the pelvis. So it sits just below sort of the border of it, or the crest of it, and runs all the way to the greater trochanter of the femur. So what that basically means, if you put your hands on your hip and you feel a bony bit coming out the side, that's your hip bone, if you will, or that's your femur bone, which is of the hip, which is the ball and socket joint. So it joins on from the flat pelvis, or the flattest part of the pelvis bone, onto the outside of your the bone of your upper leg. And what it does is it works with the glute medius. So if we then put a layer on top of that and we go to the glute medius, it's on the gluteal surface of the ilium under the glute max. So it's the next layer on top, and it also runs to the greater trochanter of the femur. So both of these muscles work together, and the glute medius is abduction, prevents adduction, and medial rotation of the hip. So what we're looking at is the femur being taken away. So if you were to stand on your feet and lift one leg out to the side, that would be your glute medius and glute minimus working. If we then go to the muscle on the top, which is the glute max, so this is the gluteal surface of the ilium. So again, it's onto that flat bone. You've then got the lumbar fascia. So I talked about that when I talked about the quadratus lumborum and the lats. So it's another muscle that joins into there. and it inserts on, originates from the sacrum as well. So it's 3 different places: the ilium, the lumbar fascia, and the sacrum. And then it inserts on the gluteal tuberosity of the femur and the iliotibial tract, which is essentially it's the IT band. So it attaches onto the IT band and onto the femur, the same place as the glute medius and the glute minimus. The action is external rotation and then extension of the hip. Now, extension of the hip is the major one. It supports the extended knee. So when the knee is, in a sense, locked out or in its extension, it will help that. And abduction of the hip. So there's a lot of movements that it does, but when we talk about its function, we're going to start honing in and thinking about that more specifically, and hopefully with a little bit more clarity, because we have talked a lot about there. So if we move on to function, what it primarily does is glute maximus is primarily a hip extensor and external rotator, as I mentioned. Glute medius and glute minimus are abductors. They're powerful and they direct that power in many directions. So when we're talking about generating power, it's not only going forwards and back, it's going sideways, it's going up and down as well, and it's rotating. So it's creating a lot of power and directing that power in a lot of places. So when we're talking about power, if you think about golfers, where do they generate their power from? The hips, rotation. Boxers, where do they generate their power from? The hips, which is rotation. Sprinters, where do they generate their power from? The hips, which is moving forwards and back. Anyone that's involved in jumping, so basketball players, long jump, high jump, they generate all their power from the hip, and that's taken up and down. Invasion games like football, rugby, American football, basketball, when they're moving, they are changing direction. Now, again, they might move from forwards and back to sideways. That, again, is done from the hip. So when we're talking about core training and moving that into function, what we're trying to build is a foundation of glute training, which is then moved in conjunction with core training, so that they're sort of they work together. They're inseparable. So you have to have good strong glutes if you want good strong core training, if that makes sense. So the gluteal the gluteal group for core training is they assist the spine musculature, the QL and the obliques, as I've mentioned in previous videos, to help hold the pelvis up during single leg support, and thus are key players in spine stability during walking. So at its most basic, it's there to, if you watch someone from behind, what you might see is their pelvis rocking from side to side. Now, the more that rocks, the more unstable the pelvis, the less the gluteal group is working. So the better that can work, the better the pelvis becomes firm, which helps with the spine stability. If we then take that upper level into running, then we need even better glutes to be able to hold that in a more powerful and impactful way that running is. They also externally rotate the femur, which is a functional feature we use to take full advantage of the squat and the deadlift. So as we go down in the deadlift and the squat, we externally rotate the hip. Now, what that looks like within those two movements is the knees moving outward from the inside of the foot to the outside of the foot. So we want the knees towards the outside of the feet. That's externally rotating the hip, which is engaging the glute muscles, allowing us to make better gains or take more advantage of those muscles during those movements. And there are also 6 deeper muscles which together assist controlling internal and external rotation. So you've got even more muscles deeper than that, which are assisting those 3 major muscles in all those movements. So we've talked about some of the exercises that we would use. So if we move on to the exercises, we've got squatting, deadlifting. You've got any single leg, like single leg deadlifts or single leg squats or Bulgarian split squats or split squats. But you've also got step ups and then lunges, and then you've got all the variations of side lunges, transverse lunges, sagittal lunges going back and forward, walking lunges. So they're involved in really anything that involves the lower leg, the lower body. So whenever we're rotating on our feet, they're going to be involved. If you want to become a little bit more technical, we might go into tall kneeling and half kneeling exercises. But on a very basic level, with regards to function, what we're talking about are squatting exercises, deadlifting exercises, any single leg exercises, any exercises that involve stepping up, and any exercises that involve lunging. So when we go into the gym, we don't really want to be focusing on the quads with those exercises. Yes, the quads are involved, but so many people are quad dominant. So we want to be able to maximize the glutes out of this, because they're the ones that create the power, and they're the ones that direct that power because of the ball and socket joint in many different directions. So that's really what we want to be focusing on. So what we can start to do now is, with all of our muscles of the core, so the abdominal wall and the abdominal fascia, the QL, the lats, and now the gluteal group, we can start bringing all those all those muscles together into one unit. So we build it, which is the purpose of these videos, is we build it from the ground up. So we start thinking about planks, side planks, bird dogs. We build that in. Then we move into the gluteal group, which is the squatting and the deadlifting. Essentially, what we're trying to do here is build that hip hinge. So we're first of all building endurance. We're then engaging and bracing the core, and then we're developing the hip hinge and moving into these different exercises. So as a summary of all of those exercises, when we go in and train our core, first of all, we want to be focusing on the endurance of the core. Then we build on top of that, bracing it. Then we build on top of that the hip hinge, and then we build the movements. So the squats, the deadlift, the single leg, the step up, and the lunge. We would also then build in walking, running, and changing directions within those, but that would be a stage on again. So hopefully within all of these videos, it's given you a better understanding of what core training involves, and maybe what you need to be thinking about when you go into the gym. Again, if you live in the local area to Bristol, contact me. We can go through a core training program. As I've mentioned, just go to personal-training on the website, fill out the form. You can come along, do a 12-week core training program where we'll build all of this. This is essentially me bringing what I do in the gym to the screen, and trying to help you understand the process at which I guess core training is best worked through, and the formula and the method that I've found most effective. So just as a signing off, many thanks for watching. Please do come along to my social channels, which is Twitter @Christopher Hull, Facebook Christopher Hull Training, and Instagram Christopher Hull. Alternative, do come to the website if you want an online training program which will work through these types of principles. Then contact me at christopherhull.com/online-training. If you're in the Bristol area and you want to work through this in the gym, you want to build a stronger core and foundation, again, come to christopherhull.com/personal-training. Fill out the contact form. I'll be in contact. We'll get you booked in and get you started. So many thanks for listening. My name is Chris, and I will speak to you in the next whiteboard.